me about a product that you successfully marketed and what was your strategy?
Okay, so I'll give you a couple examples in 3 different industries, right? So one of our clients provides custom designed dance wear for cheerleaders and pro teams and dance teams and things like that. And they came to us just because they knew they needed digital marketing and they were missing the mark. So when I did a discovery session with them, which is what we call our strategy session, it's about a 4-hour meeting with them, and we talked about all the different aspects of their business. So I had to learn the industry. I knew nothing about the dance community or how to dress up as a cheerleader or anything like that. So I had to learn about the industry, but I also had to learn about their target market. And so what questions I asked was really about their users. So I spent some time talking about the business and the industry, getting a 30,000 foot view of who they are and what the industry specifics are, but I spent a lot of time focusing on who are your customers. And so we built out user profiles. And so this was like literal, like fake people. We named them and gave them an archetype, and we talked about their demographic and psychographic information, what personality styles they had, where their attention was, what content mediums they were interacting with. And this was purely based off of just imagination and empathy. We weren't using statistical data or anything because they didn't have any of that. So I said, based off of your gut feeling from the people that you work with and the people that you're targeting, who are they? And so we built out, I think, two or three different user profiles. And then I mapped out their journey of like how they would potentially hear about you, go from awareness to research to engagement to conversion to advocacy, and said, what are all the different user experiences or brand experiences in each one of those categories. And so we kind of mapped all that stuff out. And one of the things we noticed was that there was a gap between our client and what they did compared to how they were positioned. So they specialize, right? They are a high-end product. They're not the cheapest. They are about 30% more expensive than their competitors, but there's a good reason for that, is because they're highly custom. But when you looked at their website, it looked very much cut and paste like everybody else that was out there. It was kind of a Me Too website. The design was not high end. It looked like their product was amazing, but the way they were communicating what they did was missing the mark. And so the strategy included brand positioning. So we redesigned their logo and identity to match the look and feel that they wanted to convey. And so instead of being cluttered and mass produced, we wanted to make it look classical and refined and reserved in their design. And so we took away a lot of the extra design elements and gave them more of a high-end minimal look. So it was brand positioning. The other thing was we led off with content. And so instead of just ads about custom design dancewear, this is, their average order could be $12,000, and so people aren't going to buy that on their first visit to the website. But what they will do is they'll exchange their contact information for valuable resources, right? And so what we did was we created content that their end users would really like to engage with. And so an example of that was one of their end users was a small business dance studio owner. And one of the things we found out about them is these are people who love their craft, they love to dance, they love to teach dance, and they're passionate about it, but they don't know a whole lot about running a business. And so I said, what if we created a resource that was called, I think it was like the 3 or the 4 P's of studio ownership. Like how, and the value proposition was, you love what you do, you love to teach dance, but when it comes to the business side of dance, sometimes we are asking questions like, how do we do things? Here's a 5-step guide, or 3, whatever the guide was, but how to run a studio. And so we did some research, we built the content, and we put that as what's called the lead magnet on their website. And so when we drove traffic to the website, they see that there's that resource there, and they would trade their contact information for that resource. And what we noticed is that we had really high conversions on it, so we got a lot of emails, and then that triggered a funnel of email automation. So there's about like 4 or 5 emails that would be sent subsequently after that, and then it was tracking what their activity was on each one of those emails. And it took about a month, but we broke the record for their historical record for however many leads they got in a particular month of qualified leads. People who have been to the website, they are in their target market, they're interested in what they do, and they wanted a free quote on the big package. And so that's one example. Another example would be, well, what we're doing with Cup of Joy. And so Cup of Joy, we're standing in one of my favorite coffee places here in town, and it started with a small coffee shop in the middle of Old Town Clovis. And right now we're in their second location, which is in kind of west side Fresno. And now they have locations in Madera, and they're moving, I think, to Hanford, and they have Joy-throughs and basically the drive-through model of this, and they're expanding, and they're a roastery. And so we've seen them grow from this small little coffee shop into this like really big company, and now they're continuing to grow. That's one of the reasons why I'm really excited about working with them, is because they're on the move and they're hungry as well. And so one of the things we did for them wasn't a real focus on marketing, but on brand positioning and their identity and putting out content. And so we did the same thing, build user profiles. Who are we targeting? We're in a third wave coffee shop, which is like a really hipster type environment, but Fresno is very much not a hipster place, right? And so, I mean, there's obviously there's hipsters everywhere, but it's not like Portland, right? Whereas if you go to Portland, there's these places everywhere. The cool part about Cup of Joy is it was the first of its kind here in Fresno, and so we're like, how do we introduce this new concept of third wave coffee to the Central Valley, where the demographic is completely different? And so we had to kind of meet in between. We couldn't go full on hipster-ish, and so some of the branding and messaging and designs and stuff were catered around that. And it was kind of cool. And again, we didn't have digital marketing strategies set up for them. It was just a matter of brand positioning, and then it just kind of took off. And I think there was a third example. Okay. So we're talking about strategies, right? So strategies for effective branding. So one of the things that we noticed for ourselves, I'll just use ourselves as an example. Butler Branding is a brand strategy design consultancy that does marketing, right? Well, how do you convey that in a marketing message? What we found is that even though our value proposition, our X factor is our level of strategy that we conduct with clients, nobody is doing a Google search for brand strategy companies in Fresno. They don't. When our clients need brand strategy, they don't Google brand strategy. They Google web design companies, because they think their problem is they need a website or brand design or marketing. So the felt need was marketing, graphic design, or web design. What they really need was brand strategy, right? So if I was, a prima donna, I would say, well, it doesn't matter what they need. I'm just going to say we do brand strategy, right? And then what we noticed, because we tried a little bit of that, we had a dip in inquiries on our website because nobody was searching for that. So what we did is we had to add content on our website to increase organic rankings on SEO for web design. Even though web design is just a small part of what we do, I mean, it's a large part. We do a lot of websites. It's not the primary thing we do brand strategy. Nobody was searching for that. So we had to create content for what the felt need was. And so one of the effective marketing methods would be not to do your marketing based off of what you do, but what your users perceive it is that you do. And then when you have the conversations with them, you could then introduce what it is the actual need is. Yeah.
Cool. So you gave out content on web designing, or how did you do that?
Okay, so it was a few things. One is we created web pages on our website to increase organic rankings. So just like you would do a Google search for marketing companies, like that's based off of content that's on our website, as well as content that's on our social media and other channels. So Google thinks that we're relevant to whatever keyword search that is. So we built content on our website about that. The other thing is I created a series of videos on web design. So what content should go on your website, what is user experience design, user experience fundamentals, and so I have like a bunch of videos on web design, and then we put them on social media, and then we would target people that we're in our local area that we're trying to reach. And so that was one thing. So yeah, creating content for us, it was just web pages and video content.